How do? Welcome back. Pouring this gently because it's a bit of a gusher. I messed this one up a little bit. I only use a teaspoon of sugar, but blimey, is this carbonated? As such, it's a bit cloudy because it's disturbing the sediment at the bottom because it's that cloudy. There we go. That'll do. Nice looking pint. This is a kit beer. It's another Czech Pilsner kit beer, and I brewed it with Nova Lager. Had about 10 days in the fermenter, 12 days, and transferred to the bottles just using a teaspoon of dextrose, and it's been about 3 weeks in the bottles, and blimey. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them have really been carbonated. I'm not going to review this though because I've got another kit on the go. I messed this up a little bit because, well, let me show you the kit. I really like it. It's Better Brew Czech Pilsner. It's a nice 2.8 kilogram bag, and that's generous, isn't it? 2.8 kilogram, and they recommend you just add 1 kilogram of dextrose, but I didn't. I added light malt extract, dry malt extract, and it's turned it into a bit more like a pale ale-ish type of beer. Rather than a lager. It's got a bit too much body to it, but I did enjoy it, so I've put another one on, but this time I've just used dextrose and just a little extra light dry malt extract, about 250 grams, and then about 80 grams of malted dextrin as well, because that's all I had left, and that's tasting a lot better. Really nice. What I like about this kit is there's a really nice hop character to it, source hop, and you don't find that in many kit versions of Pilsners. This could be a really good one. So I've bottled that'll probably be ready in about another week, 10 days, and then we'll give it a go, and it's tasting a lot better from the hydrometer tube, a lot better. This unfortunately is a little bit on the like on the pale ale side because I used that light dry malt extract. Still a good beer though. Still nice and grassy, bitter, and that's what put me onto this kit, because I was reading through some forums. You know, I'm going through this Pilsner kick at the moment, getting some beers ready for the spring and summer, which is only a month away now. Spring. And I was looking through some forums, and people was talking about this, and a lot of people didn't like it because it was bitter and it was too hoppy and grassy, and I'm thinking that's exactly what I want, and it really has that character to it. It's just a shame I turned this more into a pale ale. But I mean, it tastes a nice beer, don't get me wrong. And I'm going to review properly the next batch because it is meant to be a Pilsner, and then I can give it due justice rather than trying to review a Pilsner when I've actually turned it into a pale ale. Oh, by the way, I'm going to talk about some upcoming projects I've got. I should be brewing this weekend because I've got a 4-day weekend. So I'm thinking of doing my Pilsner again because those 20 bottles have all gone. It was that good, so I'm going to put a big batch on. But what I'm also planning to do is to do some wild brewing. Because if you remember, I think it was before Christmas, and I said I poured away 23 litres of Cooper's bitter because it had got sour. And it was only after I threw it away that I realised it was naturally soured, because my kitchen's full of lactobacillus, because I don't just ferment beer, I ferment vegetables as well. I make my own sauerkraut, pickles. I also have salamis hanging up occasionally and they ferment. But especially with the vegetables, I've got, peppers, bell peppers, chilies, all sorts of things fermenting. When you ferment vegetables, you produce lactobacillus. It's already in the vegetable. It's just you've created an environment with a brine, a salt brine, that it really enjoys, and that salt brine keeps out a lot of bacteria, so it keeps it safe. That means that my kitchen must be full of this lactobacilli, and I didn't shut the lid on the fermenter properly. I think I was dry hopping, and after the initial ferment I opened it, put some hops in, and I didn't seal it properly after, so I must have sort of introduced some lactobacillus or bacilli, I can't remember which it is, but this bacteria was introduced to the beer, and of course it soured the beer, but it soured it naturally. I'm thinking I'm going to do another experiment, just a small batch, and see if I can repeat it. So after the ferment, the initial fermentation, about 4 days, 5 days, I'll just lift up one side of the fermenter lid and then leave it for another week and see if it can sour again. However, on the same theme, I've been reading a book. It's a book I've had for a while, but I've only got around to reading it. It's called The Fermented Man. Now this is a writer, obviously, who in 2014 decided he's just going to consume fermented products for an entire year, January to December. So that means he's eating things like pickles, well, bread's fermented, so bread, pickles, salamis, cheeses, cultured butters, yogurts, and for drinking, obviously he's drinking water, but I think it's called kefir, beers, wines, kombucha. And when he was writing the book, he was a manager of a homebrew shop, so he was a home brewer as well. And I think now he's actually become a brewer, professional brewer in America at one of the American breweries. So he's very interested in fermentation. But he mentions beer in this book and how he's going to make his own beer. And because of course he talks about pickles and all these other things, and he makes them himself for this year that he's on this diet. But he gives the recipe for his beer, and he's got a similar idea to me. But what he does is, after he's fermented his vegetables, he pours the brine, which by this time it's full. After a couple of weeks it's full of lactobacillus. The brine has actually gone cloudy because it's full of bacteria, and he pours that straight into the beer along with the vegetables. He uses a squash, so he takes a squash and he doesn't peel it, he just washes it. I'm assuming it's an organic squash because it's important that the yeast is still on the skin of the squash. And then he just chops it up into chunks, puts it in the jar, fills it with a salt brine, ferments it for 2 weeks, and then he makes a beer. And he uses dry malt extract, makes a beer, boils it, adds the hops, cools it, transfers it to a fermenter, and then what he does is he tops it up. He uses 19 litres, as an American, 5 gallons, 19 litres. Tops it up to 19 litres. So just like us when we make a brew with dry malt extract. But then he pours the entire jar with the squash into the fermenter, and the yeast on the skin of the squash ferments the beer and creates the alcohol. But the lactobacillus that's in that brine that you've been culturing and growing for the last 2 weeks, that goes in as well, and that sours the beer. I'm thinking, wow, that's like one step up from what I was trying. So that's what I'm going to do. Rather than, risk other bacteria maybe getting into my beer when I've just got it the lid ajar on the fermenter. You can keep the fermenter sealed, but you just pour it all in, and then you get your yeast and your lactobacillus, and it's safe because you can put the lid down and make sure it's safe this time. Put the lid down properly. And I thought, wow, what a good idea. So that's what I'm going to do. Except what I might do is, because it does say it takes about 3 to 6 months to ferment, because this is wild yeast that's on the squash, and it's going to take time perhaps to build a colony. Might not be suited for ale brewing, so it's going to take a bit longer. It says it takes about 3 to 6 months. What I'm thinking of doing for the first batch is starting off with a brewing yeast, just one of the sachets I got from a kit, and I'll start it with that just to give it a head start. The lactobacillus will still be in there though, and should start souring it straight away. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to try and do a lot of experimentation again this year. Do more kits just for general drinking and enjoying, and for the boils with my kettle, do a lot more sort of experimentation. I'm going to collect some more wild yeast this year from my cherry tree, and I'm going to do it in 2 ways this time, just like I did last time, with make a little wort, put it outdoors for 24 hours near the tree, and then you bring it indoors, and when it comes up to room temperature it will start to ferment if you've captured anything. But there's another way you can do it, and that is you make a little wort, about 500 mils, and just take a shaving or two of the bark from the cherry tree, and put that in, and when it starts fermenting you can just take the bark out, because you don't want it too woody. Well, I wouldn't have thought you wanted it too woody flavoured. And then you just let it ferment, and you can culture your own yeast that way. Another way, of course, is to actually pick some of the cherries, which will have yeast on the outside. And you can see it sometimes. You can see the cherries, and they've got like a whitish look to them until you touch them, and then you can sort of like wipe it off. That's yeast. So I'm thinking also of picking some cherries and putting that into, maybe even mash them up, put them into a wort. That will provide sugars, provide the yeast, make a starter, and then brew a beer with that, and will add to like a cherry flavour to it. So these are the things I've got in mind. A lot of experimentation this year, a few more kits, and yeah, wow, we'll have to see how these things come out. My sour beer, my wild yeast beers. Anyway, I'm going to finish this now, and like I say, I'm going to do the review with the proper one I've got. It's nice, it's just a bit too pale ale-y, like, a bit too much body, because I've used that light dry malt extract. But it's still nice. Nice bitterness at the back end. Nice bit of lemoniness and grassiness. So in another week, I think we'll be able to sample the actual Pilsner. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.